I'm sure we've all gone through a situation in our life that has been tumultuous. It's been painful, and we've had to go through a lot. And we start to lose hope, and we become stressed. And then we feel like somebody has the audacity to utter these words. Everything's going to be okay. We get so worked up inside that we really don't believe it. And given our culture and our tendency towards platitudes are just repeated niceties that people say because you're supposed to. It hurts. And we think they're being dismissive of us and not really acknowledging the true pain that we're going through. And so when we hear things like everything is going to be okay, everything's going to turn out fine, you know what happens? We get defensive and we clam up and we try to lock away, and we find ourselves tending more towards despair than to hope. Because you see, when we're given these platitudes, we see them trivial. Our mind has already started to wonder, and we start to think of all the other possibilities that could go wrong in our life. Recall from last week, the first reading. Coelho said, "Vanity of vanity, all things are vanity." Alluding to the fact that there are trivial things, as the reading said, that keep us up at night and prevent us from sleeping. They're trivial, and they gnaw at us because they lead us to despair, when at the end of the day, they mean nothing. In our first reading this evening, we are given a reminder of almost that same thing. Because you see, the gospel reading, we are reminded of, the second reading, we are reminded of Abraham, excuse me. We are reminded of Abraham and Isaac. And recall that story for a second. Recall Abraham and Isaac. Abraham had to go up a mountain with his son. And what does our Lord ask of Abraham to do? To be prepared to offer his son Isaac. And what Abraham does is that he quickly becomes obedient. And for us, something like this is difficult because it seems as if obedience, at least at this point, is irrational. And why would someone commit to sacrificing their own son? And so they begin their journey. And you know what Abraham has Isaac do? Carry the wood for the sacrifice on his back. And as he's carrying the bundle of wood, Isaac asks a question. Where is the lamb? Where is the lamb? Isaac knew something was up. And what does Abraham say in response? A line that I hope you take to memory. In Latin, Deus Providebit, or God will provide. God will provide. And imagine being Isaac. You are essentially told that everything is going to be okay. And because that spirit of docility was with them, they progressed up the mountain, And in moment's notice, before Abraham kills his son, a ram comes out of the thicket. And God provided. When we are in times of turmoil, we like to think that God will not provide. And more often than not, if we're paying attention and we're more in tune to His will, we will realize that He has been giving us indications the entire time. In that first reading from the book of Wisdom, we are told that the Lord gave the Hebrews a forewarning. He let them know ahead of time when the Passover was going to come. He said, be prepared. For when the Passover comes, I want you to do certain things. I want you to put the blood of a lamb on the doorposts. And He gave them a list of things to do to be prepared. So to say that when the Passover day came and the firstborn was killed, to say that they didn't know would be incorrect. Believe me, they knew. And I think the reason why we fall into despair and we do not like being told everything is going to be okay is that it necessitates that we actually trust the Lord. But trusting in the Lord does not mean the same thing as simply wishing or hoping everything is going to be okay. We have to accept the fact that the Lord is going to ask of us things that, at least in the interim, do not necessarily make sense. But we do know, as Abraham said so faithfully, Deus Providebit. God will provide. And our Lord reminds us of this Himself clearly. When He gives this parable, and He talks about a thief coming in the night at an hour that you do not know. We have all had events sneak up on us in which our lives were changed in an instant. Where we go to bed at night with our life being fundamentally different than when we woke up. We may have gone through experience where we suddenly lost someone that was completely unexpected. Or we may have had to go through something that was trying. And the last thing that we want to hear is, everything is going to be okay. Sometimes the Lord comes like a thief in the night. And He is reminding us that we must be prepared and to be vigilant. And that vigilance means that we are becoming more in tune to what His will is. We may not know all the pieces, we may not have all the pieces, and we may not know what the completed picture looks like. But to say that we weren't prepared or surprised would be wrong. Because the Lord has told us countless times, be prepared. Be vigilant. Because we know, as Abraham said, Deus Providebit. God will provide. However, you may ask, what do those provisions look like? I do not know. And you have to be okay with not knowing what those provisions will look like. You have to trust and be familiar with God's will. We know that He will provide. And those provisions, we have to keep our eyes open so we don't miss them. But we know, although it may be really hard to say sometimes, the Lord makes this promise very clear, that in the end, when all is at last made manifest, and we who watch for that day may inherit the great promise in which we now dare to hope, that everything will be okay.